I really can do this now. I think I got it. Okay. The fourth category would be economic innovations and workforce development. In this category, we're looking at such things as workforce training, a significant issue in West Michigan, in fact, across the state and the country, and food licensing fee waivers. And in the fifth category, we're looking at improving government operations. This would be such things as government facility improvements, new technologies for how we function, and addressing customer service kinds of projects. So those are the 5 large buckets that we've identified. And obviously there's an awful lot of things that can fit into those buckets. And that's what we want to be able to pursue now, and to find out what does the community think about, where do we prioritize within those buckets, among those buckets, and what other ideas do you have that we ought to be considering? So having made it to the end of my slides successfully, I'm going to pass this over to Al Vandenberg, who is our county administrator, to explain in more detail this process.
Thank you, Chair Stack. I decided I wouldn't try to chew gum, move the slides, and talk all at the same time. So the engagement. So per the ARPA Act, we are to engage the public, and even though it's required, we would do it anyways, simply because we think it's the right thing to do, and we believe that there will be things that we don't think of. I mean, we don't know it all, and we have over 660,000 people in Kent County, and certainly we value that input tremendously. There's different ways that we are going about achieving that engagement. So there is a survey and idea form that's been sent out. We actually sent it out to 90,000 stakeholders, and we also made it available online through kentcountyarpa.com. And the survey asks residents to rank the 5 priority groups that Chair Steck outlined a few moments ago, and also to share ideas on how that funding should be spent. It'll also collect demographic information to ensure that we count for the different populations that make up our very diverse county. There's also a proposal form, and that will collect funding proposals from the community, from organizations, from individuals, and we develop this form to allow detailed funding requests to be submitted for consideration. Printed copies of the survey and proposal are available in the county administrator's office, and additional one-on-one meetings will be held with disparately impacted communities within Kent County. In fact, those meetings have already started, and more are scheduled. There's also 3 community forums. You're at the first one. And then there's also one Monday, June 6th at Rockford High School in the Creative Teaching and Learning Center. I should say tonight's is also being live streamed. And then Wednesday, June 8th, we're in Gaines Charter Township for the 3rd forum. So this is just an outline of the process, and I'll probably emphasize more than once that some of the instruction we had from the federal government, and something we're really taking to heart, is that we do want to fund transformational projects. And the way I would define a transformational project, it isn't just a one-off where you spend the money's gone, and we move on. It's more something where you invest the money, and then it has future impacts, future growth. It impacts quality of life. It impacts community wealth. It impacts improvement of services, of something into the future. So I like to say a transformational impact reverberates into the future and keeps on echoing into the future. So basically the process and timeline, the survey and proposal portal was opened in May. The survey and idea form closes on June 24. And then the funding proposals form closes on July 15. And then through July, August, September, the Board of Commissioners will be reviewing and approving projects for funding over that time frame. We are anticipating that we will very likely get requests for funding that significantly exceeds the amount of money we have. So obviously, those will be difficult decisions in deciding what projects are the most feasible and transformational. So we're at a discussion time, and we will take comments both in person and online. And so the first discussion question, so as you look into the next 5 years, what is the single most important thing you think the county should focus on? So feel free to break the ice and jump out there and be the first person making a comment. Yes.
I'm biased on this. My particular passion is affordable housing, and not only, in our state, but in our country. We're currently in a housing crisis. And as you indicated, with transformational change, housing, I think, is one particular area where that can happen, particularly if the county and the city, because we're in a pivotal time in our country when it's got to be critical that we work together to overcome many of the obstacles that we're facing today. And as you say, transformational change should impact now and into the future. And I think affordable housing, and not just affordable housing, my concern is housing for every resident in this country, that they have a safe, and quality, and in fact, quality of life. And I think the foundation of that is housing. So that would be mine.
Thank you very much. Do we have other comments? Yes, over here. I missed the step where I was supposed to say, please go up to the podium, but we're certainly willing to run the mic out to folks as well. So.
Thank you. Well, I would like to say that in the next 5 years, I would like to see the county focus on helping to not see the services and institutions that we have currently go in reverse. I've seen COVID have a negative effect on all types of industry, including restaurants. You could also say housing. You could say a lot of different things have been affected by COVID in a negative fashion. And I'd really like to see the efforts that we're making here today with this funding fund those types of projects that are going to, again, transform the future, but also not regress at this point from where we stand. I can make some specific examples. I'm going to hold off on doing that right now, but I really would like to see those things that are going to allow this to not go backwards, to see this go forward and to improve our community, as opposed to seeing these negative effects that this pandemic has had on the institutions that we currently have in place.
Thank you. Other comments? Feel free to jump right in.
Don't make me hold this thing.
Well, we all know that mental health is a major issue all over the country, and as well as here in our own city. And so I don't have a specific proposal, a project in mind, but I know that someplace it will evolve around probably mental health or something related to it. There are other issues, health-related, community health, things that might move the needle in terms of our community health needs assessment and some of the issues that are brought up there. So there are just a host of things that could be addressed that would be transformational. But mental health certainly is one of them.
Thank you. This is a good group. We're 3 for 3 on transformational ideas, so keep it up.
That is my pet project. Can I give the mic back to her and have her keep talking?
All right. Other comments? Oh, I know they're out there. Go ahead and jump right in. Okay, back here. You're gonna get a workout if nothing else. So
It's worse than campaign.
Thanks. So I'm kind of just looking at this for the first time, so I don't have any specific ideas off the top of my head right now. I'm sure I will as we move on, but my name is Isaac DeGraff. I'm the Advocacy and Policy Liaison at Link Up, and we're a community development nonprofit over at Hall and Madison. And I know we would love, hosting these meetings is awesome. We would love to host a meeting at our gallery space, a community meeting. I know you mentioned doing one-on-one meetings with the disparate impact communities, but have you thought about doing a community meeting at us or, at the center of NAACP or somewhere, in 49507 zip code that we could have some of these discussions and talk about more ideas?
Sure, if you would connect with Lori in the back of the
Yep.
room, so we have your contact info, that'd be great. For those who came in more recently, we're considering the question right now of, well, God, here you go, I flipped my thing. What is the most impactful thing, transformational area that Kent County could spend ARPA money on in the next 5 years? So biggest impact in the next 5 years. Other ideas?
You got $127 million to spend. Oh, that got the hands up. Look at that.
Hi, my name's Jan Vanderwoord. I lead the real estate development and management group at ICCF Community Homes. So I'm speaking on behalf of my organization. Our perspective very much is that this community is in the middle of, and certainly not anywhere close to the end of, an affordable housing crisis. We have an inventory issue. We have a supply issue. We have a demand that we've never seen before. And the trickle-down logic of economics says that those at the bottom of the price scale are the most impacted on a per capita. And the interesting piece about the affordable housing crisis and the housing crisis right now is that this is not just about affordable housing anymore. People who used to be able to afford a market rate house are freaking out about availability. People who can afford almost $300,000 have nothing to buy. So we're really, in a way, glad that the community all sees it now. People with great jobs and master's degrees can't buy houses, but single moms with 2 or 3 kids that works 2 jobs certainly can't buy a house. So I'll put words into the mouths of some of the other organizations that are here representing 49507, but it would be a huge loss if affordable housing wasn't a driving priority here. And we have a ton of precedent on how to roll these dollars out in existing programs. It's not cutting a new path. It's not blazing a new trail. It's underscoring and amplifying some of the strong programs that already exist. So that would be our organization's hope and prayer.
Thank you.
We had, did you have your hand up too? I bet you can give an emphasis to it.
Hi, I'm here speaking on just behalf of myself because I think Isaac and this gentleman here hit the nail on the head on the affordable housing. An idea that I put out, in the long term is like I've been reading a lot about sovereign wealth of funds like in Norway. It was like, well, what if we did that on the county level, while if we can invest in businesses here in Kent County and greater West Michigan and create a sort of stipend for folks to receive a yearly benefit, and increase the retention of talent here in the region. So I saw that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Fred Wyman. I'm a citizen. I don't represent anyone other than myself, and I could say my wife as well. I've talked with her about this, but I think one of the big issues is affordable housing, but I'm not going to speak to that because I have no particular expertise in it. But I think what we need to look at is using existing resources in a way where they can be less centralized. I'm thinking about mental health and physical health. Right now, we have hospitals that do a great job, but not everybody can afford that. And I'm thinking maybe a more diverse, neighborhood-centered approach to physical and mental health might be something that this grant could help support. And here you go. I'll take it to the next one if you like.
Well, it's hard to know where they are.
Thank you.
And one other thing too, and I think you mentioned this as well, is, and I know a lot of times in the community, people are really concerned about the lack of access in public transportation. So it might be worth a look to see how maybe you could close the gaps and expand it, because sometimes it even impacts people's ability to get to work, which is really important, which speaks to workforce development. You don't keep a job if you can't get there. And usually, you know, there are some cities that have excellent transportation systems. And you should maximize what you have. I'm never one for advocating spending money that I don't have to, but I'm going to take a good look to make sure that the dollars count and help the citizens that live in our city and our county. So if you could look at that.
All right, thank you.
I agree with the gentleman over here about small businesses that are still struggling, even though, there's no more grant money. There's some grant money. I just probably don't know where they're at, but haven't found it yet. And I'd like to see, some of this money to go to these restaurants, small businesses. I run a yoga studio, still struggling, trying to keep the doors open. And also address the mental health from a yoga perspective, trauma. People that dealing with loss of job, COVID. I have a couple of ladies that are nurses and said they lost their jobs because it was hard for them to deal with it mentally. And there's research that shows that, yoga really helps people with stress, trauma, anxiety. So that was something I would like to really see some of that money go toward. And mostly to people, I don't want to say older people, but most of the people that around here, I was riding in with Fred, and I see young people. We don't, if people a little bit older, they go to in the studio, they don't see people that look like them, they're not going to come back. So I'd like to see an emphasis on, helping people, get their mental health, physical health together. Then they have the capability to do the other stuff with a clear mind, hopefully.
Thank you. The single most important thing the county should focus on. Do we have other suggestions, other input on this question?
Mr. Truer just walked in, so he has a comment, I'm sure.
All right, going once, going twice. We have another question.
Is there anyone online, Steve, that we're not catching?
Right, we do have, oh, I thought we had two. Okay.
Is there any other, did you have a comment here? That hand is almost up. That's close enough to get the mic.
Almost up. I guess I don't think that there is one single most important thing in the county. I look at the city that I live in and the greater Kent County and see issues everywhere. I work in the nonprofit field. I work with 17 different nonprofit organizations from Northern Kent County to the, 49507 location. I have, health clinic clients and hospital clients. And there is not one single issue that has been brought up here that isn't the most important thing. So I would just hope with this $127.6 million that it's spread across the board. I can't begin to understand what the cost of all these programs are. I can't begin to know how the people that are in control are going to pass out the funding or find a way to what is the most important funding. But I think we have to look at the big picture. Transportation is a huge issue. Mental health is at the top of the list. Housing is in a crisis mode. Northern Kent County, you can't get transportation. There is no bus system. There is no affordable housing. There is no property to rent. We can go on and on and on. So I just hope that there's a wide swath and that everything is looked at.
And absolutely, that is the case. We're not looking to figure out get a vote on what that number one thing is and put all the money into that. We know there will be a range of things. The key is it transformational? With the CARES Act, as Chair Steck mentioned, the goal was get it out to business, get it out to families, get it out in the community, keep everybody afloat. The county's made thousands of small grants of the CARES Act money. And the idea behind the ARPA money is to do a smaller number of grants to projects that are transformational in the areas that you mentioned. Every single one of those is a transformational area. And so it might be in the dozens or instead of the thousand. So it's kind of more of that kind of focus.
Yeah, we don't, I mean, where is that point where you have to spend this much to be transformational? Well, there is no magic line, but we know in general we won't be able to do hundreds of projects and have transformational impact. We'll have to do significantly fewer. But the objective here is whatever those projects are, they're going to make a significant difference in the field that we are working.
All right, this was just a discussion starter, so if you have any other input beyond that question, feel free to give it. So what else is on your mind regarding the ARPA funding and ideas that you think are transformational, suggestions for how you think the money should be spent?
Is this the first of many questions, or is there going to be more discussion questions?
There's another slide.
Yeah, okay. But that's not a discussion question.
Right. No, actually,
know
I
it's in
thought
my
there were two,
worksheets.
but I think the idea was just to get the discussion started. But I think I did see two earlier, right, Lori? All right, so, wait, you know what? I might even have it in this paper copy, so I'm going to have to challenge Chair Steck's agility with all the different things going on up here.
Well, I
so.
know I saw another couple of questions.
Okay, here we go.
And I thought you had the cheat sheets because you must have known there are more there.
I just have more to say. It's just
Oh.
All right, the other question or the other discussion starter, I guess, was in considering the needs of our residents, what are some ideas for the county to consider that will move us collectively forward? So that's a broad, we should be able to fit anything in that one, right?
It's broad, but we're looking for a little
All
more
right.
focus. What are some of these ideas? What's the kind of projects that come to mind within housing, for example? I mean, housing's a great amorphic kind of concept, but what is it, the project that needs to be? Having asked, you have the answer.
Thanks for the opportunity to talk, and if I'm on my soapbox too much, somebody just tell me to quit. One of the beautiful things about the CARES program and a lot of stimulus dollars was in a moment of absolute crisis and emergency dollars flowed en masse into this community and helped people with rent stabilizing funds, coupled with an eviction moratorium, which stopped an inevitable mass eviction of the lowest income people most impacted by COVID related economic changes. And we are talking in the many tens of millions of dollars if you conglomerate all the different sources that went through CARES or through the SARA program or Salvation Army's initiative or private funds that came into that same arena. And it seemed very timing appropriate because we had something that came quick. I would implore that we look more long-term in terms of an investment with the remaining fund, with this source, which is a beautiful, beautiful problem for the county to have, is to how to allocate this. I'm not saying that all emergency uses of funds should stop, but I am saying that that's the predominant vehicle, and the way that funds were allocated before. And we hope it's more strategic, more long-term thinking. So if it's producing affordable housing, that it be with organizations that are proven and trusted in the community to provide that. And I'm not claiming in any regard that ICCF is the only group doing this. We are very blessed with many groups in town with many decades of work in this field. There will be people there will be sharks that circle when these funds become available that don't have business providing that level of support and social service in the community. But I hope the dollars go in an investment format. That could be in home ownership, that could be in rental, that could be in new shelter space, but as opposed to direct rent assistance to individuals, we're excited to see what comes out that's more long-term focused.
Thank you. I think we have someone here who's thinking about it. Yeah.
So
Right there.
So there's a lot being talked about here today. There's a lot of things that have to be considered when you talk about who is deserving of funds of this nature. Obviously, there's a lot of needs in our community, and I can see a lot of them here today. I'm hearing a lot of stuff that doesn't impact me. Affordable housing is not on my mind every day, but I can tell you this, if it was, it would be of utmost importance to me. So I'd like to give them a shout out, and I think that they're well represented here. We represent something slightly different, and I mentioned before about an institution that might be going in reverse, and that is a health club and tennis facility in the Granville, Wyoming area that is slated to be torn down. This is a 50-year-old institution that services not only 500 members, but also over 300 Silver Sneakers members, which are senior citizens that are qualified to attend the club at no charge. This club is the only club on the southeast side of Grand Rapids that offers this service to seniors, both a physical as well as a mental and emotional place where they can go and receive all types of access to the things that they need for those quality of life issues, as well as quality of life, the programs that are being offered by our group, which is West Michigan Community Tennis. We are an outreach program that operates tennis programs in the city parks for underserved members of of our community. We operate in MLK Park as well as Aberdeen Park. We're offering outreach and also tennis instruction for not only for a physical outlet, a physical improvement of life, but also as a way for kids to find ways to work as a team, for kids to work together to solve problems, to gain something on the tennis court as well as in life. There's a lot of things that I would like to touch on as far as infrastructure. Again, to tear down something like this, which is what's happening, it's being slated to be torn down unless something can be done. Now, we've formed a 501c3 that is attempting to keep this club in the community and to expand its outreach as well as its offerings to the underserved communities that we see, both the Grand Rapids Public Schools, the Potter's House schools, the Wyoming Public Schools are already participating in our programs. We're already offering these types of services in the community. What we're trying to do is expand that into this club setting to give an indoor year-round after school as well as summertime institution, a physical building where people can go and receive these types of services that are, in my opinion, extremely important to this community. Thanks everyone for listening to my spiel. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, I don't think we've tapped this group yet. So what other ideas are there for transformational spending of ARPA dollars in Kent County?
such as a new crisis stabilization unit. Do you have an hour? Well, it's one of those behavioral health responses that I think this community is in significant need of, that improves the ability to get behavioral health services where people are in crisis immediately, and takes them where they are and immediately transfits that into the right kind of and level of care. Believe it or not, we don't have that effective system yet, but we need it, and we can get it, and we are going to get it. It's not the jails, and it's not the emergency rooms. Yep.
All right. What other comments do we have? What other ideas, suggestions?
Because you want to talk, because otherwise I talk. Yeah, that's.
I have a question. Through the list of 5 different priorities here, are these in any particular order?
No.
Okay, good. And then will the suggestions that people make online be available for everyone to look at?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
And we
You have a commissioner who would like.
Commissioner, so she can wait. We get a lot of ideas already. I mean, you get
Yes,
some idea
yes.
what we're getting in through the portals. It's a significant influx of concepts and
I
ideas.
think in the first 4 hours it was out, we had a couple hundred responses already. A week and a half ago when we put it out. So yeah, we're getting some good interest online.
I'm wondering, when we talk about housing, and we know that that is an ARPA favored outcome for spending, and also obviously there's a lot of interest in it, which of the 5 categories do we see? I mean, to me, it's not exactly obvious. Is it quality life? Is it infrastructure? Has there been much discussion about that?
There has not. I think that's
I
a
do have an
really good
answer for you,
point. I think it could fit probably most under infrastructure.
That's the
Thinking
answer.
of
It can fit into many of these categories.
community
You know,
infrastructure.
Housing is
Yeah.
connected to behavioral health issues in general. I'm sure that you would support that back there. Infrastructure, so it's capable of fitting in any number one of these.
Except for government operations, maybe.
You need a house too, Al.
One of the things that hasn't been brought up yet that has an impact on the community, and that is the whole thing of immigration and refugees. In our health clinics, we have a number of individuals who speak a different language, who have different cultural concerns and so on. And this, of course, affects all of our schools, because if you have a variety of languages that are a part of your first grade or second grade or preschool or whatever, that could have a major impact. I have no idea how to address such an issue. But I think it does affect the health and the quality of life of everyone in the county. The other thing is childcare. Again, I have no idea how to address that, but because it's so expensive and so limited, it might be something that surfaces in discussing what are the needs in this area.
Thank you. Yes, we have actually had childcare suggested as an impact area, and are aware of some of the challenges in that area. Yeah.
Can I
We do have the online audience, so it would help
I
if we,
know
yeah.
we have this all the time. It's just, we can hear you, but they can't.
Yeah, I just had a couple quick questions. So kind of the first is there's 19 districts, I believe, so that's a lot of commissioners and a number of politicians involved in this process. How do you determine where these locations, where this money is being targeted, where the locations it's going? And it kind of leads to the next one is like how are you choosing these projects, right? And what does that process kind of look like?
I think
First of all, there are 21 districts. Yeah.
January 1.
January 1
Yeah.
it goes into effect. And which district? It'd be my district primarily. So.
Right, so no one has suggested yet dividing the money into 21 districts, but you could almost see that coming. But no, I think the key will be to spend the money on transformational projects. And obviously, if you're on the county board or county administration, we're interested in projects that have a countywide impact. And so, transformational is kind of the high bar, will be projects that impact countywide. And a lot of the investments the board makes in certain areas of the county, whether it be parks or other areas, we believe do have a countywide impact.
And I think if you look at these categories, they all have countywide impact. And so it's intentional that we identify categories that identify and attract projects that will have an impact across the county regardless.
Was there a part 2? Right, okay, all right, thanks. And yeah, and again, I think it's looking at the transformational impact. I mean, if yeah, go ahead.
So,
Yeah.
for example, lead response. And we know that lead response is an important part of this county, but it has a more significant impact in certain areas of the county.
Just a quick question. Will the proposal form be the only thing that you're looking at, or will you also have meetings? Will you have meetings with the groups that are presenting the proposal forms? Is that all based on the proposal form?
Well, I think that certainly there will be meetings with groups that are under consideration for funding, but probably not with everyone that submits a proposal form. So there will be some evaluation process to kind of narrow that down but yes, there will be further interaction of different kinds.
Yeah. So as we identify these, we would want to begin to develop and work with the groups that are proposing it. We kid a little bit that we're likely to get some suggestions that you keep my lawn mowed. That's not likely to make it to the category, but we won't meet with them. But there are going to be a lot of great ideas that probably will require us to follow up.
And another way to address the previous question would be, every one of our cities and townships also received ARPA funding, or are receiving. They got half and they'll get the other half soon.
As do schools.
And so there could be partnerships. We're hoping that we get proposals that say, hey, we'll put some of ours in, you put some of yours in, and let's work together to do this transformational project. So we're certainly hoping to be able to stretch the dollars and expand the dollars so that we have an impact that's significantly larger than $127 million. What? Oh, yeah.
One back here.
Thank you. So I just sorry, I came late, so maybe I missed this, but I'm Frida. I represent the African immigrants and refugees. You know me, Al.
Hi, Frida.
But I was just asking because sometimes I've seen when money is being given or there are grants, unfortunately, small organizations that have less capacities or infrastructures are affected, and they are the most doing the hard work on the ground. How is this going to be addressed so to make sure that these groups are not affected by that? Because of course some of the ones like me and others that mostly serve the immigrants or refugee groups, sometimes you are still under the growing pains, and I don't think that it will be the best thing to hear that, oh, this is not what we are looking for, something like that. So just like a county, what are the measures in place to handle that barrier?
Thank you, Frida. Good question. I think that part of it is we haven't set like a level and said it has to be X number of dollars to be transformational. And also I think it would be, in your case, what type of program, what type of investment could you seek to have a transformational investment? What will make the assimilation, the integration, services to immigrants better in the future? And what kind of investment could we make that will continue to work to make that experience smoother and better? So I think, so I would say that, the size of your organization really would not be a limiting factor in that case.
There is another limiting factor that we really didn't talk about. I think it's in the slides somewhere, and that is the timing factor. So these grants must be allocated under the terms of ARPA. They must be allocated no later than, I think it's December 31 of 2024. So, and that means they must be actually spent by December 31 of 2026. Now, with those time frames, you can imagine it'll be difficult to come up with an idea out of your mind, convert it to substance, reality, implementation in that time frame. So maybe, but it is an unfortunate limitation on how we have to function within the statute. So.
Seems like a long time, but it'll pass quickly.
Yeah. That's why we're doing these now, because we got to get them in the queue to be able to have that allocation by the end of December.
Other ideas? Very good input so far. So yes.
So if someone had an idea that was in an implementation stage and was fortunate enough to get selected as a candidate, would funds be able to funnel through in this calendar year, or does it have to wait?
Funds could funnel through in this calendar year.
The funds from the federal government come to the county in two payments. And the first payment has already been distributed to the county.
Yes.
And the second one will come later
By
this year.
June 10, we believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the 127 will be here. It's only a question of making sure we're complying with the appropriate restrictions. Last thing we want to do is have a great project and then have to pay it back to the federal government. That's not going to happen.
In fact, the county did hire a consulting firm that represents the U.S. Department of Treasury, State of Michigan, some other larger counties. David Cernick. David, raise your hand. He's with Guidehouse. And that's one of the filters any proposals will go through, is to make sure that they are eligible for spending, because the last thing we want at Kent County is to spend money that we then have to repay down the road when the army of bean counters descends on us to make sure we spent the money appropriately. So
that was a Guidehouse guarantee, wasn't it? You reimburse us?
Okay, other input? Any other ideas?
And
If
we
you
can-
don't, if
we
it
can take
slows
those
down,
ideas later, of course, too. There's certainly opportunity as you leave. That's usually when I get my best ideas, when I leave. And then if you want to get online and pass that through to us, that would be great.
all right, any other ideas? If it slows down too far, I think Stan may entertain us with maybe a little singing or.
I do have a little something in mind.
All right, so are we at a conclusion, or do you have other ideas that you want to give us? I'll say going once.
Or questions, just about the process. Or
Going twice?
well, we come back every Thursday evening.
Oh, wait, did
so
Frida have something?
Yeah.
Why not, Frida? You're here.
Like, for example, groups that may submit similar ideas, and of course, maybe they have been working on those ideas and they submit, but they haven't brought the idea as a, like a partnership. Do you guys look at it and review it and maybe talk to them? Because I think that's
Yes.
maybe something I wanted to hear about.
That would be a great idea. In fact, West Michigan is kind of a land of collaboration where organizations get together and do some pretty cool things. So I think it would make any application stronger if there was a group of partners that were bringing it forward together.
And at the same time, if we see a grouping of ideas coming from different organizations, and they're all kind of the same idea, we could well connect those organizations together and say, you guys are all kind of working in the same space. Maybe there's something you should talk about.
Back there, Sam.
This is another thing off the top of my head, but if we can work with the companies and HR and community organizations across the county, with inflation going the way that it is, and with interest rates going up, I think a lot of people are going to be laid off in the near future. Maybe not here, but just in case, we could do a massive sort of like workforce development project. I think when I did the survey, I did economic as my top issue. I think with these dollars we can lower the amount of unemployment here in the region by a big number. So.
Thank you.
You're not saying that's going to happen, but it could happen, right?
Yes.
Man, you guys are working me.
He's getting his steps in, so that's good.
Thank you. Do you expect to have a limit on the amount that an individual proposal can value? You said dozens, all right? So if there are 25 proposals, $1 million each. So do you expect some small applications or small projects, or You know, what would be a maximum that an organization might request that would be acceptable?
I don't think I can answer that. I mean, it could be one organization that contacted us. We've had suggestions of organizations asking for 1.5 million, 3 million, 5 million. It's hard to answer that until we get all the proposals in. We haven't really set a ceiling because it would really, again, if it was massively transformational and if it would really help a lot of people countywide into the future, then I'm not sure we're at this point ready to put a limit on it without knowing any of that. So, yeah. So I don't know if we'll get 1 million, or if we'll get 25 million. I just don't know how that'll come in, but my guess is that it would be somewhere in the low millions, 3 to 5 somewhere would be a big one in this case. But again, it could be larger, we just don't know.
Yeah, so the real difficult conundrum for us could be you have a major project for $100 million that's truly transformational in this county. And then you have 40 other $1 million projects, which would be kind of good, but we can't do both. So that's why we have commissioners that are elected to make those tough decisions. Pardon me?
Painful.
Reporting to the state or the federal government or to the community? Okay.
Well, we do periodic reports throughout the year. In fact, Guidehouse is now preparing those on our behalf. And I don't know that we know the full extent of the reporting at the end of the program, but I'm going to have David Cernick handle that question. I know it's painful, but I don't know the details. So
Maybe give us the short version.
It'll be very short. Yeah, so according to reporting, so there are quarterly reports that we do submit that are financial reports, and then there's an annual performance report that gives you more metrics around the impacts of the programs you're doing. So we will be preparing that. The first one will be in July. By law, it has to be public, so everything will be posted online. You will see all of the projects with how much you've spent and what that impact looks like, shared regularly with the entire public.
And David, do you have any info on the end reporting after December 31 of 2026, or
no?
nothing
And
yet?
we are still, thank you, U.S. Treasury, still waiting on the details of what our performance report is supposed to look like. And as that date comes closer, we are getting more anxious. But we will be doing that. And of course, that final report we won't probably know until the year of. That's kind of that in a nutshell. Yeah, so if you are a subrecipient, meaning you're another organization outside of the government that does receive funding, you would be responsible for federal guidelines, which we would include in that agreement, that subrecipient agreement that you'd receive, which would outline all of those requirements, but it would be a larger requirement than you might normally deal with. If you've dealt with federal funds before, they're going to be pretty similar, so you would be familiar with them, okay? Great.
Familiar with them. We don't have to like them. But so the other maybe part of that question is what kind of reporting back to the community might this process engage in? And I think that as we look going forward in that timeline, I don't know where if you can find that again, but we were looking at some point after July 15 is when we'll have concluded we generally have the ideas that we're going to have and the ideas that we're going to have. And then we're going to be looking at taking that to the process of doing that sorting we talked about, and I believe there'll be some series of reportings back to the community and as to what that process is looking like. So, do you have a question back here? Okay.
Any other questions or comments?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just want to say that I understand, the impact of funding big programs, projects, but don't forget about the smaller businesses because they really help the economy grow. And I've been around them many years, and a lot of them are left out. So all I want to do is say, don't forget about us.
All right, thank you.
Republicans, we wouldn't.
Oh,
forget
over
about
here, yeah. No, that's fine. That's why we're here.
So let's say someone submits a proposal for X amount and it's warranted that you don't think that you can allocate that much fundage to that particular organization. Would you suggest another option? Would you lower the amount that they requested, or is that not an option? You have to hit the nail on the head when you do the proposal.
No, I think that there could be a negotiation there. Yeah, I do think so.
Yeah, I think we could go back and forth. I mean, you'd have to decide if you're the proposer. If we say we can't do 10 million, we can do 8 million. You have to decide, well, can we still do the project in a credible way, right? So. No. And then, are there other matching funds we can get that will kind of bring that along? So.
I did want to acknowledge we have two other commissioners in the audience. Carol Hennessy. Carol, give a wave. Melissa LeGrand is up here. And I'm sure others will check into the recording of the live event. So
Maybe online there's some.
Yep. Any online comments? Or questions?
Yeah, so again, local units of government, townships, villages, cities all have their own ARPA allocations. Schools have their ARPA allocations. And all of them are able to make independent decisions about how they want to spend that money, where they want to spend that money, just like we do. And of course, the state has ARPA money. So what we are looking at doing is, to what extent can we identify these projects that has a level of interest at that local unit of government such that they would say, we'll partner with you, we'll put in X dollars from our ARPA account, you put in Y dollars from your ARPA account, we'll go to the state and get the rest of it. And at the end of the day, we're able to leverage that to a significant project that maybe neither one of us could do otherwise. So. But that will take conversations between us, because they're not obligated to do it and we're not obligated to do it.
Well, one idea that has come up is that there could be collaborative funding to do some broadband work, which could be city or township, county, maybe state, maybe provider coming together and all maybe throwing, say, 25% of a project in the pot. But the concept that, certainly during the pandemic, there were kids who couldn't connect very well to their schools to participate in education. We're seeing a lot more medicine and mental health appointments being pushed out over telemedicine. And we just have a lot of areas of Kent County that simply don't either have poor access or no access at all. And even if you look at the gig economy and all the folks that were starting to work from home even before the pandemic hit, we get input about that fairly frequently, that folks would like to see some money spent on working towards eliminating that deficit.
And it is one of the priorities under ARPA. So.
Right. Well, I'll tell you, for having gone to twice, you've given a lot more input. Is there anything else? Anything else you'd like to say or ask or?
Nothing? You like Al's tie? Later. You just see, she waited until I got way over here.
My name is Christy Kane, and I represent a nonprofit, and I'm thankful to be here and hear the community share their thoughts tonight. And I would like to echo, what you were mentioning about quality of life. That looks so different to everybody, and each area of the community is so different. Families trying to keep their heads above water, maybe that's your housing issue. Small businesses, your backbone is weak right now, very weak. And your nonprofits, the do-gooders, they're feeling the stranglehold too. And where there's needs, that they're trying to meet or growth that they're trying to accommodate. You know, our families can't help us, our small businesses can't help us. There's just this chokehold on that growth being able to be realized. And so I just want to say thank you for the diversity that I see here and the interest in the transformational ideas. And I'm excited to see what will come out of these funds.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, that's an interesting dynamic that Kent County is, one of our strengths is we're very diverse. And one of our weaknesses is we're very diverse. Because across the 660,000 people, you see huge disparity in economics, in disparity in where they live, what kind of culture they live in. And we serve them all. So finding that project that maximizes the service there is a challenge for us.
Any other comment? Going once. Going twice. Thank you all very much. We really appreciate your attendance and participation. It doesn't end here. Go back to the last slide. All right. Whoops. There we go. So we have www.kentcountyarpa.com. You can find any of us if you have questions. So that doesn't end. This is a beginning, and we hope that you are able to talk with others and give thoughtful consideration to getting the word out and getting ideas in for transformational use of the ARPA money. So thank you very much.
Thank you all.